There is something you can do to massively increase your damage output in Diablo 4. This is going to be using glyphs inserted into the Paragon board. Now, in order to use glyphs, I highly recommend leveling the glyphs, and leveling your glyphs will both increase the radius, making it easier to hit the requirements in order to get the bonuses of said glyph, but it will also increase your glyph's power as well. In order to level your glyph and get experience for your glyphs, you're going to need to do Nightmare Dungeons. Nightmare Dungeons will also drop you new glyphs, so if you're worried about how long does it take for me to get my glyphs, if you're farming, you should have all of the glyphs in the game in just a couple of days. You'll also get the glyphs from doing the Tree of Whispers runs, so you don't necessarily have to worry about how do I get the glyphs as much as how to level them, which is what we're going to explain to you now. In order to unlock the Tree of Whispers runs, you're going to need to complete all the way through Act 6. Once you've completed the campaign, it will unlock your ability to do the Tree of Whisper. The Tree of Whisper will give you your first Sigils as well as your first glyphs. Nightmare Sigils in this game are what unlock Nightmare Dungeons. The higher the level, the Nightmare Sigil, the higher the level, the Nightmare Dungeon. The higher the level, the mobs in the dungeon, and the more difficult the dungeon will be, as well as the more experience you will gain at the end of the dungeon towards your selected glyph. Because of this reason, as well as the fact that monsters that are higher level than you can give you up to 25% increased experience, pushing Nightmare Dungeons that are stronger than you is something a lot of players will be doing. Doing Nightmare Dungeons will also give you more Nightmare Sigils, so it's recursive, allowing you to continue to farm dungeons without stopping. Farming all of the glyphs to maximum level is going to be one of the primary ways that you're going to increase your power come late game. The reason for this is some of the requirements are not possible without finishing up and maxing out the level of the radius. As you increase the radius of your glyph, you will have more access to nodes that can help fulfill those requirements. As you go through the Paragon board, you're going to notice there is more and more glyph sockets available, and you're going to want to fill out and level all of them. Now, in order to unlock Nightmare Dungeons and Nightmare Sigils, you're also going to need to beat the Capstone Dungeon. The first Capstone Dungeon is in World Tier 2, which is your Veteran Capstone Dungeon. This will unlock your normal and sacred sigils at World Tier 3. Ancestral sigils, which are your higher tier sigils, will unlock once you've completed World Tier 4 Capstone Dungeon, and you can craft those at any time through the Occultist. One of the most common questions is going to be, how do I actually craft Nightmare Sigils? And you have to run a certain amount of Nightmare Dungeons before you unlock the ability to actually craft them. So do not sleep on leveling up your glyphs. You might think you have the glyph in the socket, you might think you've got your Paragon board points, you might think about just farming the overworld, but you will be wasting time if you do not level your glyphs up. This is where you're going to be getting a large chunk of your power come late game. It's also very efficient to farm the Nightmare Dungeons in a party. You have a limited number of revives when you're doing Nightmare Dungeons with your Sigils. For this reason, when you are revived by a teammate, it does not consume one of your revives. So if you're using softcore and you're pushing the higher tiers, I highly recommend doing this in a party. Now, we have lots of other tips planned, as well as many other videos out already on this channel. You can see some of them here, and consider subscribing to be notified of the newest ones.